Hello, Blair.
Hi.
I am so excited to chat with you again.
I'm honored to be here. This is just such a treat.
I tell you what, oh my gosh, I include this in my book, so I don't want to give all of it away. But when I very first started getting really into social media and connecting with people, you were one of the first people that I connected with. And yeah, I know you didn't know that. And so just, oh my gosh, just what you poured into me in the first time that we talked. Like the first time we talked was just a chat to kind of say, hey, let's get to know each other. Do we have anything in common? Is there any way that we could support each other? And look what it's turned into.
Yeah, like next stop, world domination for you, Amy. I mean, I didn't know, but I'm a super connector and I love connecting. And also with the work that I do in this world as a grief and resilience expert, I love to get to know people and see how I can help them. We're not always all struggling, but we all have a story. And when I met you, I just wanted I felt your light just from your social media presence, but just connecting with you and hearing your story and kind of what we are doing with the project, the Global Resilience Project. There was such a beautiful fit. And it's so funny because you told me your story. Oh, I love it. You told me your story, and I was like, girl, you need a TED Talk. And you
You
laughed at me.
did.
You're like, no.
Yes, you were the very first person to say that to me. And I literally laughed at you and I said, my story is not TED worthy. Thank you, but my story is not TED worthy. And you just kept saying it really is. Like you really need to consider this. You just kept pressing, and I just kept inside. I was literally, laughing because I thought it was comical. But three more people after our conversation, three more people also said that to me. And so it ended up, being something that's working itself out. But I just feel like, you started that ball rolling. Like you put that thought in my head, like maybe this is something I need to look into. And
Yeah.
I just appreciate that a lot.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I believe in you, and I believed in you from like the minute you and I met. But, having a podcast like this, it's like mini TED Talks. And everything is, putting the puzzle pieces together. And the beautiful thing about TED Talks is that there are so many, and there is the right one out there if that is your desire. And I mean, I never done one. I do have a goal of doing a TED Talk, and I have one I'm going to be applying to because the theme is resilience.
Ooh,
And we'll see what
perfect.
happens. Yeah, we'll see what
Yes.
happens. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we met again. I can't remember. I know we have chatted, a few different times. The next time we met, you said, you know what, would you like to be in my book? And I was just like flattered that you invited me to share my story in your book. And of course, I accepted that. And I tell you what, that was the beginning of me starting to write my book. Was just the chapter, which I have the book right here, just the chapter in this book, Resilience AF, Stories of Resilience, available on Amazon. Just putting together my chapter for that book made me realize, well, it's 10 years. Like there's 10 years worth of, living with a broken neck, of story that I have within me. And I could put together one chapter, but oh my gosh, there's 10 years worth of stuff that I could share. Maybe I should share that. And so I want you to know that you sparked that in me. I always felt like I wanted to write a book. I used to teach language arts. I used to teach kids how to write and thought it would be really neat, to write a book, but I never knew what it would be about. I just didn't have a topic, didn't know. And then all of a sudden you asked me to write a chapter for your book. And it's like, this is it. That's what it is. It's going to come together the way it has. And it blows my mind.
I love that. I think that's really beautiful. And that's the thing with writing. Like once you kind of start getting into flow, you realize all the words that are in you that need to come out or want to come out. And, some people are intimidated to write. And, we all have that ability, to journal, to write a story, to tell our story. Not all of us want to. Some of us do it reluctantly, and, some of us do it, and that's the only time they do it. And then some of us are like you, who start writing, and you're like, whoa, like I have more than 1,000 words to give, and the world needs my message. And it's such a gift
Yeah.
that you have that.
Yeah, it's exactly what you said in the Global Resilience Project books, is that it's a part of healing. Like
Mhm.
I started writing and then I absolutely stopped because it was so deep. Like it was like reliving the traumas over and over again as I was, putting them on the page. And I had to stop, take a break, kind of reset and rest and recover.
Mhm.
And had at one point decided I can't do this. It's too hard. It's too deep. There's too much there. There's too much pain there. And someone said to me, which totally changed my perspective, think about writing it from the person you are now instead of the person you were then. And that
Yeah.
completely changed everything for me. I had not thought about it like that, but that's exactly what I did. And I was able to get in there and realize, look at all this stuff I've learned. Look at what this process has taught me. Look at what it can teach other people. Okay, I have to put this out in the world.
I love that. That's great.
Yeah,
And that's really great
yeah.
advice. Like I tell people, like I built this project, the Global Resilience Project, which is a social enterprise and a global movement where we help people strengthen their resilience muscle. But I didn't, set out to start it like that. I set out to write a book to honor the legacy of my father and I. We had quite the journey. He was terminally ill. Our story of his addiction, my forgiveness of him, and our resilience was inspiring people. So originally I just started off with writing a book, but it turned into this global movement. And I was writing from a place of open wounds. And I always tell people write from a place of a scar and not an open wound. It's a lot easier. And, I
That's
meet people
good.
who want to share their story and they're still in the thick of it. And I really want to make sure that people are you know, able to write and like writing from the person you are now than, who you were when you went through it. It's harder when you're in it because you're in it,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah,
and some people write while they're going through it because it helps them heal. Like we're all on this journey and we all have our own processes. But I think that's such beautiful advice. Like write from the person you are now. And I like to say, like, turning my pain into purpose helps me heal. And it's one of those things where in hindsight, you're able to write these stories because you can see it from the beginning, the middle, and where you are now.
yeah, absolutely. And it is such a healing. There is such a healing component to it. And I have heard you say this on many of the things that you have spoken on, that you don't have to be in a book. Like you don't have to write your story to put it in a book or to share it with a world, but just getting it out and putting it
Hmm.
on paper in some way, shape, or form, just for yourself, that
Hmm.
in itself is healing.
Yeah, and like also I think something we should say is like a lot of people have come to me, Blair, I don't like writing. I don't write. I don't have a computer. I don't want to, maybe if writing's not your thing, you dictate it, you record it on your phone and, just get it out of you. And it starts your healing process. And I think the first step is to admitting that like it's okay to not be okay and that you do have a story because everything that has happened in your life has led to this very moment.
Yes, yes, exactly. And there are lessons along the way that you have learned that maybe you have overlooked and not even realized until you go back. That's exactly what has happened to me. Like one of the things that really, really not triggered, but surfaced as I was writing this book is that I am not one to ask for help. Like I'm a super independent person. Like I
Mm.
want to do everything on my own and, meet the goals and blow them out of the water on my own. And I realized as I was writing this book, the number of times that I had to ask for help throughout this journey. And every single time people came to help me, every time. Like it wasn't like I was asking for help and people were denying me. It's like I'm learning that it's okay to ask for help, that that's part of being
Mhm.
human, right?
And we're not meant to go through it, our challenges, life. We're not meant to go through it alone. Like that's why communities exist, right? And you never know, like sometimes asking for help like helps you get through it faster. I know we have this pride that like we can do it, we're independent, we can get through it alone, but I don't know where that came from because we don't. We don't have to go through it alone.
Yeah.
Like we're meant to be like we're social creatures. We're meant to help each other. like one of my friends is going through a hard time right now, and I was able to help her. I gave her a grocery gift certificate because she's going through financial hardship. We have a neighbor who just lost their father, and I offered support because I have a lot of experience in losing parents and grief. Like sometimes you can reach out to someone who you see going through it and offer help. They don't need to even just like, you don't have to wait for them to ask you.
Right. Yeah. And, I talk a lot about, of course, my business is called Polish the Mirror. So that's what I talk a lot about is being able to polish that mirror so that you can see your soul and your authentic self more clearly to
Hmm.
help meet your own needs. And I really try to make it clear that that doesn't mean that we don't need other people. That
Hmm.
means that we are taking care of ourselves so that we can better help other people, that we're able to help other people better because we are meeting our needs so that we can help others in the same way. And so I really try to make that clear as I'm talking about polishing the mirror, because it can come across as, just something that we're doing for ourselves, but it's not. It's for ourselves and for others too.
And so because our book just launched, I've been on a bit of a media tour and I've spent way
Yeah.
too many hours on airplanes, but I'm grateful for it and very lucky and fortunate. And this analogy gets used often, but it's like on an airplane. You're told to put your mask of oxygen on yourself first before helping even your children. And that same
Yeah.
thing needs to be applied to life. Like where did it go wrong where we became the last on the list to be taken care of, right? And sometimes
Yeah.
like we have to be in that caregiver role, but who's taking care of us? And so if we
Yeah.
can kind of come at this where if we're taking care of other people and other people are taking care of other people, like eventually someone should be taking care of you as well, but you are responsible for yourself.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I keep referring to the book because it reminds me of things that I put in there, but don't want to give away too much. But I do talk about, the caregiver role that
Mhm.
when especially someone like me who was had so much trauma and was so incapacitated, and you don't really think about this person is taking care of you the whole time, but you don't really think about that because they just keep doing it and they don't complain about it.
Mhm.
And it was really through writing the book that I realized, oh my word, what all he went through, my husband went through while I was dealing with that too, that, nobody ever recognized, nobody ever acknowledged that. And it's
Mhm.
so important that we give caretakers what they need too, because they're going through so much.
I love that you said that because I'm sure my day will come where people have to take care of me, but I've been in a constant caregiver role. I'm a child of divorce and older sister. And, as of recent, like my story, over the last 5 years, my husband had a heart attack, quadruple bypass surgery, open heart surgery. He's also type 1 diabetic. I am in a caregiving role. And then, with my parents getting sick and like things happening, I've been in a caregiving role in some capacity. Sometimes it's just support from afar, and sometimes it's literally bathing my mother before she died. And it's interesting because something I reflect on is yes, this person is dying of cancer or had a heart attack, but often it's almost a different type of hard, but harder for the caregivers. Because
Yeah.
when I mean, and you're on the other side of it, right? Like you were so deep in your injury and what was happening. Like but then there's this responsibility for that person to manage all these other things happening and take care of you. And it's so interesting because they both are really bad places to be, like being an injured
Yeah.
person or a sick person or a dying person and being a caregiver. But I think society, unless you've been in one of those roles, they don't see that the caregivers also need to be taken care of.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. I mean, they, like you said, they are suffering too, but in a different way. And, what I talk about in the book is that I could see in his eyes just, the he wanted to help me, but he was struggling himself too.
Mhm.
And, um, you're what is the award that you got about grief and resilience? You just won an award.
What's the
Um,
award I got?
Yes, yeah,
Oh, the top grief and resilience expert of the year for 2024.
yes. Congratulations on
Thank you.
that. And so I didn't even do an intro. I just jumped right in because I'm
Oh,
just so eager to talk to
it's
you.
okay.
But
You could add it later.
it's like we just chat. That's what we do. We just get together and chat, right?
Yeah, I love it.
But
And
it,
I was just going to say,
go ahead.
I think, just before we kind of stray away from the caregivers thing, I think if you see a friend going through something, so maybe their partner or someone they love, a parent, a sibling, a family member is sick, check in on the caregivers. Like the caregivers need to be taken care of too, and they're not going to ask you for help. So,
Yes,
and if you're like, how do I help? Little errands. Maybe it snowed, go shovel their sidewalk. Send them gift cards for groceries or food delivery. Like sitting in the hospital with my husband for 3 weeks, the best thing anyone could do for me was send me gift cards for like restaurants around the hospital, right? And so little things like that, if money is not something you can do, like maybe just help them with errands, maybe watch their children, maybe, you know, go help them clean the house. Like whatever you can do is moving the needle and helping them. And a little bit goes a really long way.
yeah, yeah. And I was gonna come back around. I brought up that grief and resilience award because I was thinking that I went through such grief. I lost an entire person. I lost who I used to be, and I had to grieve that person. And so I was so deep in grief that I didn't notice him struggling, as a caregiver.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's exactly what you said. Like he would never have asked for help. Like he probably didn't even know what he needed. Like he didn't even know
Right.
what kind of help he needed. So if someone could have just stepped in and say, hey, let me just do the laundry for you, or let me
Mhm.
just, run the kids to school or something like that, it would have helped a lot. So yeah,
Yeah. And it's also
absolutely.
like I think people feel too proud to ask for help, but really like you should be proud that you asked for help. It's,
Yes,
I think we need to shift that narrative. Like we're not, again, back to the beginning of the conversation, like we're not meant to go through it alone. That's why we exist, the Global Resilience Project. We are that lighthouse in the storm. We are here to help, provide resources, connect you, to professionals. Like we want to let you know it's okay to ask for help, to need help, to want help. We don't need to walk through the pain and the dark forest alone.
exactly. And I love what you're doing with that project. And I hear that you're going to have more books to come. Is that right?
You're some of the first people to hear this, but we are going to do a third book. And you can go to the
Yay.
globalresilienceproject.com and see if it's the right opportunity for you. You can also go there and you can follow us on social media and read the stories of resilience, purchase the book, buy our fun merchandise. We have a really
Yes.
great Resilient AF shirt available right now. But I didn't know if I was going to do it. And as soon as I launched it, people were reaching out, how do I get in your next book? I have a story to tell. And as long as people want to tell their story, I have the capacity, I will do it. I will keep putting out these books.
Oh, I love that. That's the reason I do my podcast, the Polish the Mirror podcast. It's
Mhm.
helping people share their stories of hope gained in the midst of adversity because
Yeah.
people want to share their stories, like they have stories, they don't have a platform to share them. So
Yeah.
if we give them a platform to share, it can help their healing, which is exactly what your book does. And people have already asked me, like, I have a story, but I have never known how to share it, but I want to. And so I'm like, this is the perfect opportunity, just try to get in the next book, contact Blair. And
Yeah.
it's
I
the
love it.
whole process was, it was very, very organized and well set out. And I knew it from the front exactly what was expected of me. I knew what was going to happen. I knew how many words I needed to come up with. I knew by when I needed to turn them in and all of that. And, the editing and the producing and all of that, the back and forth of it was just, it was very smooth. And I really appreciate that. I have never experienced anything like that before, so I didn't know what to expect. But I wanted to tell you, how I felt about it, that I felt that it went really smoothly and it was very, very good experience for me.
Oh,
So
that's so nice
thank
to
you.
hear. Thank you. Take note, future authors. But yeah, and like the process is just getting better and better. The first book took 3.5 years. This book took 1 year, and our next book we're going to try and get out before Christmas. Depending on how fast we're able to find the authors, right? Like it's dependent on authors, and we only accept
Yeah.
maximum 50 per book. But what's really cool is that we were just in Los Angeles for the Oscars, and we were at a gifting lounge for celebrities and media, and we handed out over 100 copies. And the famous people we spoke to really loved our mission. They really loved what we were doing. And some had expressed interest of potentially being in the book, and we were invited to now be in the fall at an Emmys gifting lounge. So we're
Aw,
going to be going back to
that's
LA for
awesome.
another gifting lounge. And what's really cool is that anyone that's been in our book or will be in the book gets exposure to these people. They get exposure to this world. And our mission, well, my mission is by August 2025 to empower 88 million or more people to strengthen their resilience muscle. I'm like, I don't know. I guess I should probably set a goal for after that, but I still have about a year of it. So,
Yeah,
knowing that I'm having these really authentic conversations with people of influence who also have a story to tell and who want to tell their story potentially with us, I think is a really beautiful thing. And a lot of the conversations turn to grief. There's so many different kinds of grief, and I just made a post on social media at the time of this recording. Like grief is one of those great equalizers, just kind of like the pandemic was. Like
yeah,
you're not immune to it. And there's so many different types of grief. Like you were grieving who you were, right? Grieving the loss of anything, right? Grieving
right.
the loss of things that never even happened or never will happen, or people, or and there's so many different types of grief, but we all go through it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you talk about the celebrities, we don't think about them going through things like that. We put them on a pedestal like they're a different kind of human than we are, but they're not. They are
They're
still
not,
human.
yeah. And like we were talking about like one celebrity and their friend, we were talking about like how they lost their fathers both the same way to suicide. And one of the people shared like the day of his birth, like he was celebrating his birthday, and that day of the morning of his party, his grandma died. And like we were just talking about like grief, like death, death is on its own schedule.
Yeah.
And grief is on its own schedule. And really what this taught me and reaffirmed is that like there's things you can do now when you're not in that grief to prepare for when that grief comes. And it might come tomorrow and it might not come for 60 years. Like I have no idea. But there are
Right.
tools. There are tools you can use to strengthen your resilience muscle so that things are just a little less hard. They're still going to be very, very hard, but
Right.
they can be less hard.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the things I love about the book, and I don't know if I'm assuming you had this in the first book, but in this book that I'm in, you had this framework, this grief framework that helps you work your way through grief. Is that something that is included in all the books?
Well, it's not in the first book, but because the first
Okay.
book I was in it, and what I realized was
Yeah.
people were reaching out to me and coming to me and asking for support. And I created the framework and the support that I wish I had. And I became
Mm,
helping high performers, so pretty much anyone, helping people navigate grief. And I'm not a therapist. I am not like, I mean, you could say I'm a coach in a sense, but I'm your griefy BFF. And for those of you just
yes.
meeting me, like, not only did my husband almost die, but in a short period of time, we lost my grandfather, we miscarried, my father-in-law died, my mom died, my dad died. I became a grief and resilience expert. And so I put on the paper like the process I went through and created a framework called the Navigating Grief Framework. And I'm going to be sharing, like I speak about this on stage, and I'm sharing about it on my website. It's going to be in the back of every book moving forward. But
Oh,
I want to
good.
provide this tool because I do offer that support one-on-one. I will be building out a group coaching container. I do talk to corporations and on stage about this, but I also want to provide this information to anyone who needs it. And as your griefy BFF, if you're looking for specific support, I will help you find that support. I want to hold your hand through that dark time.
Oh, and it's so needed. I know just with myself and my daughter. She just came to me the other day. Her very best friend lost her dad. And she was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to help her get through this. She's struggling, but as a person on the outside who cares deeply for her, what do I do? And it's a really, really hard place to be because you want to help. You don't want to say the wrong thing to trigger them. it's a tough place to be. So what you're doing is so, so important, Blair. And I
Oh,
just,
thank you. And like,
yeah,
you know, like in that situation, and this is probably, relevant to anyone listening, we just want to be checked in with. Like, maybe my loss is hard for you because it's triggering things. Just send a text message with an emoji, thinking of you. Send the food gift card. Just every so often, just say thinking of you. That's enough. We just want you to hold space. And so it's great that your daughter came to you because adjacent grief is really hard. Seeing someone you love in pain because of grief is very hard. I have a few friends who are in that like anticipatory stage where there's parents decline, like health declining or people they know, and I know what it's like. And you just need to be there for them and they're in survival mode.
yeah,
And not just
yeah.
now, but like the biggest thing, my sister, who is Alana, she's my sister, she's our mental health
Yes.
director. One of the things that we both agree on is that right when something happens, everyone is there for us. But what happens in 6 months, 9 months, 12 months? The griever still needs support, but
Mm,
everyone moves on with their life. So I think, maybe set some reminders in your calendar or on your phone, but grief doesn't just go away. You learn to layer life around it.
yeah.
I know that I lost my baby, like the miscarriage happened, and then 3 weeks later, my father-in-law suddenly died after a 3-week battle with cancer, and then my mom died 3 months after my father-in-law died. I didn't have time to recover, and I had compound grief. I literally just like, and during that time, I had to sell my mom's house in Winnipeg, Manitoba. We sold our house in Pemberton, British Columbia, to move to Kamloops, British Columbia, to be closer to my mother-in-law. Like, just so much happened, and all I did during that time was I couldn't move. Like I couldn't do anything. I laid on the couch
Oh,
and um finally started to feel normal again at about the year mark from losing my mom. But then my dad died. My mom and dad died the same year, but 360 days apart. So I was just like, hey, Shane, my husband, I was like, let's go for dinner. Like I was ready to leave the house. And then I got sucked back in. So knowing that, that's how long it took me. Some people need longer, some people don't, but we still want to be checked in with. We still want to know
yeah.
that you're there. If you're thinking of us and you're making dinner and you want to invite us over, bring us leftovers, like it took me, it took me about a year to function after my mom died. And then same with my dad. After I lost my dad, like it took me a bit long, like a little bit less time because I had a bit more tools. But,
Right.
I still love when people check in with me because it's hard. Every day I'm thinking about my mom and my dad or the life I don't have, or,
Mm,
that my husband had a heart attack and quadruple bypass surgery, that it could happen again. Like
yeah.
I'm not always thinking about what's next or what was or what could have been, but like there isn't a day that goes by that one of those thoughts don't come to me.
Right. The Someone explained it to me this way that grief is like a box, like a square box with
Mhm.
a round ball in it. And that at first the ball is touching every side of the square. And that as time goes on, it starts to touch the side, like the ball gets smaller and smaller. So it touches the outside of it less and less, but it still touches it. But
Mhm.
it just is less and less. And I thought that was a really good explanation. I never thought about it like that before.
That's a cool explanation, but I mean, I guess my take on that is that the ball doesn't shrink. Maybe the box gets bigger because
Okay.
my grief is always going to be deep and painful, but I'm able to now do like I've layered my life around it. Like my box is growing.
Yeah.
My
Oh, I
grief might
love
not be as
that.
painful, like it's still as painful, but I'm able to manage it better. But it's there. It's there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that the ball stays the same, but the box grows.
I would say to
Oh,
me, that's a more accurate representation from my
yeah.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, that's so good. Oh, oh my goodness. Well, I don't want to take up all your time today. I do want to ask you one question before we hop off here that, I have this book coming out that I have written because of my chapter in your book that started that. So I wrote my memoir, my yes, my 10-year journey of living with a broken neck, and it's called Finding My Hero Within: A Journey from Incapacitation to Empowerment. And I would like to know, do you have any recommendations, any suggestions, any words of wisdom for a new author doing this on my own with me and my editor? Do you have any words of wisdom that you would like to share with me?
I know your book is just about the last 10 years, but your story isn't over. So just
Mm,
go into this book knowing that this is where your book is now and that, there might be more in the future. And
yeah,
I think my biggest thing is there's a lot of words within and get it all out of you. And that book, that one book might be really big and you break it into three or you break it into two. And that don't limit yourself because you think it's only 10 years or don't limit yourself because you only want to have one book. Just write. Just pick up that pen and keep writing and start marketing it now, which you're doing.
because it's a book, it's paper but there's so much that I experienced that I share in the book that I can't share. Like there are pictures, there are videos, there are behind the scenes kind of stuff that I can't include in the book, but that are part of the story. And so I'm going to create just a resource. It's going to just be a link for people to go to be able to watch the videos of me walking, learning to walk again, of me, sharing my heart and how I'm feeling at the time, and the pictures of me going through some things that I don't want to share now, but that are in the book. I'm going to be offering that as a freebie with the pre-launch. And then the official launch is April 26th, 2024, which is the 10th anniversary of the neck injury.
Wow,
So,
that's soon.
yes, right. So I'm taking something that was completely tragic and turning it into something worth celebrating by using that 10-year anniversary to be the launch date of the book, to share what my story and my hope with others.
I love it.
So,
That's beautiful.
yeah,
Pain to purpose.
yes, absolutely.
It
Yes, you
wasn't the
get it.
end, it was the beginning.
Yeah, yeah. And it's so true. My story it's still going. Like I just had neck surgery, which is a whole nother story. But yeah, it's still going. So this is the 10-year part, and exactly what you said, there's more. There's definitely more to it. So I'm just excited to get this out there and to share this with people. And I'm just so thankful for people like you who support and just love on me and pour into me and just push me to do more than I believed that I could.
Well,
So
you're powerful, and I'm just excited that we are part of the journey for you. And I look forward to supporting you, and I look forward to our community supporting you. You're doing some beautiful stuff in this world, and writing a book is a big project. And so good for you. That's awesome.
yeah. Well, thank you so much. Again, thank you for taking the time to chat with me today. It's always a pleasure. I always love visiting with you. And I love watching you achieve all that you're doing and helping people in the world. It just makes my heart so happy to see you out there changing lives, because that's what we're about, right? That's why we do what we do, is to help other people.
Thank you so
So,
much, Amy, and I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me.
of course, of course. All right, we will chat later. Thank you guys for watching and for tuning in. And if you have questions or need more info, just reach out to me. You can. The pre-launch for my book is on my website. It's www.getamyshelp.com, GETAMYSHELP.com. If you're watching after April 26th, then you can go click on the link on my website to actually go purchase the book. So, all right, thanks again.
Thank you.
Bye.